BookTube. This is my weekly wrap-up for April the 22nd.
I got my ticket for the long way round. 2 bottle whiskey for the way.
I had a rather epic week last week of reading, and epic in that the scope of the books that I read were rather epic. So let me tell you what they were. First of all, I got a couple of e-arcs from NetGalley, first of which was Fury by Charlotte McConaghy, and wow. Yeah, I wouldn't call that exactly epic, but it was definitely a very, very good read. It is the story of Josephine, and Josephine, when we meet her, she is having a conversation with her psychiatrist. She's in an institution for the criminally insane, and she keeps insisting that during the blood moon that she's going to go crazy and kill people, and nobody will take her seriously. And she keeps trying to drive this point home with this psychiatrist who thinks she's out of her mind because, well, yeah. The psychiatrist tells her that he will take her seriously if she just will tell him her story. So the book is told in flashbacks. You know, honestly, I got about 30% in and I thought, this is a werewolf book. Oh, you got to be kidding me. This is a werewolf book. I nearly threw my iPad across the room because I was so irritated. Well, thankfully I did not throw my iPad across the room, so I didn't destroy my iPad, and it's not a werewolf book. It's a great dystopian, and while the world building wasn't fabulous, it was enough to provide a framework for the story, which put some things into a context where they made sense. Yeah. So, great read. Great read. I gave it 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. And if you like a good dystopian, this will be one to watch for. The other e-arc that I read from NetGalley was called The Kiss of Deception, and that is the first in the Remnant series by Mary E. Pearson. This is fantasy. I was surprised. I don't generally like fantasy, with some caveats. But this, once it had me, it had me. It's the story of Leah. Leah is a princess of sorts who has been engaged to a prince from a neighboring kingdom, and she's really upset about it because she has never met this prince, and it's a whole political thing that's all been arranged by her parents, and she's very annoyed with them for doing this to her, so she runs away. Well, the prince, who is equally annoyed that this upstart of a girl would think that he wasn't worth marrying, he decides to track her down. And there's an assassin from a completely different country who is hired to go assassinate the princess. It's 3 different points of view. One is Leah's point of view, the other is the prince's point of view, and the other is the assassin's point of view. It's never made clear as to which is which. So there's a bit of mystery going on there, and then the princess, Leah, gets kidnapped and dragged across this vast wasteland. So the character development that happens with Leah from the beginning of the story until the end of the story is pretty significant. I really enjoyed that. I loved the slow reveal of who was who. The politics involved are good. It's a pretty gritty adventure, and it was the kind of thing that left me wanting the sequel. I gave it 4.5 stars. I had been working through Cress by Marissa Meyer over the past couple of weeks. This is book 3 in the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. The first book is Cinder, the second book is Scarlet, and then this is the 3rd book, and there will be a 4th book in the series, and it will be called Winter, and I think it's due out next year. I had been listening to this on audio, switched to print, switched back to audio, and I'm really glad I switched back to the audio. Let me first say that I was not overly excited about this series. What Marissa Meyer has done is take the characters Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, and Rapunzel. She's inserted these characters into basically a big space story that involves a war between 2 societies, one on the moon and one on the earth. And I wasn't overly thrilled with Cinder. I thought it was definitely 3.5 to 4 star read, but I wasn't knocked over by it. It wasn't amazing. Then Scarlet, I liked better than Cinder. Well, Cress really drew me in, and I started to thoroughly enjoy the adventure. I think probably the best thing about this book for me was the character of Cress. who, like Rapunzel, has been isolated, in this case in a satellite that has been orbiting the Earth rather than a big tower. And she has been kind of watching Earth from afar. So she has a lot of very romantic ideas of how the world works, when in fact the world doesn't work like that at all. And of course, you know, as the book goes along, she begins to realize that that's not the way it works. So that's half the fun. It's a lot of adventure, a lot of action, a lot of intrigue, a lot of politics, a lot of there's a virus thrown in where, you know, somebody's got to find the cure, and it's just a lot of fun. So I gave that one 4.5 stars. I finished a great little book last night called Blackbird House by Alice Hoffman, which is a collection of short stories set against the backdrop of Blackbird House. Blackbird House is built by a family in the late 1700s. And then the short stories, each one kind of progresses in time from then up until present day. And it follows several characters who live in Blackbird House. It's adult fiction, so it's a departure from the YA I normally read. And I really enjoyed it, but I found it to be a lot more cerebral than the things that I'm accustomed to. This is entertainment, but it's more like serious drama. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars. The 2 truly epic books I read this past week were the conclusion to trilogies. The first was Sunrise by Mike Mullin. This is the 3rd book in the Ashfall series, which is Ashfall, Ash in Winter, and then Sunrise. This series is about the apocalypse that happens after Yellowstone National Park explodes. The series follows Alex and Darla, the 2 main characters, who are on a journey to find Alex's family. Alex is a 16-year-old boy who lives in Iowa, and when the event happens, he's alone at home. His parents and his younger sister have traveled about 2 hours away to his aunt and uncle's house just for the weekend. Well, Alex decides he's got to get to them. So the first book is how he meets Darla and how they make their way across to the aunt and uncle's house. Darla is a self-taught mechanical engineer who can pretty much build anything. She's also a farm girl who is very no-nonsense, not a girly girl at all, and so she and Alex form this relationship, which begins kind of tenuous, but it ends up being, I mean, it just grows and grows and gets better and better. The second book is kind of a continuation of the journey and experiencing how society has devolved, in that you have towns where people who were formerly in governmental positions, like the mayor of the town or a town councilman, and they keep thinking, you know, they're going to run the town like they always have, and it doesn't work anymore. And then you have these crazy lunatics who take over bands of people, form towns, turn into cannibals, you know, have all kinds of corporal punishment that's very reminiscent of, you know, the Middle Ages and that sort of thing. So with the last book, we have Alex and Darla trying to form their own town and provide a safe place for people to come and then kind of just build a community from there. From the beginning of the series to the end of the series, Alex goes from being a very naive young 16-year-old boy with limited survival skills, really the only useful thing he knows is Taekwondo, to becoming a very capable, caring, responsible man who is a very good leader. I have to say that Mike Mullin really did his research. He participated in a Q&A with a group on Goodreads that I'm part of, and we asked him, what would you do if this really happened? What would you do in an apocalypse like this? And he said, I would die. I would want to just be dead. And I have to say, after reading this series, I think I would want to die too. Just, no, I would not want to live in this world. I don't think that people would behave much differently than they do in this book. So, 5-star series. Oh my gosh, so good. If you like post-apocalyptic fiction, then you would really like this. It is YA because it does have teenage protagonists, but, you know, really, really good stuff. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it. And finally, the absolute peak, pinnacle of my week was Dreams of Gods and Monsters by Laini Taylor. This is the 3rd book in the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series. First book is Daughter of Smoke and Bone. The second book is Days of Blood and Starlight, and then this is the third book. And this series is in my top 5 series of all time. This book was glorious. It was epic. It was amazing, awesome, astounding, thrilling, engaging, unpredictable, moving. I'm running out of adjectives here. It was, the thing about this series is that Laini Taylor writes so beautifully. She has such a lyrical, poetic style that it's such a pleasure to read. Now, the story is also very good. The whole series follows Carew, who is an art student in Prague, and she has a very interesting family made up of chimera. Chimera are beings who are part animal, part human, in varying degrees of one or the other. They're from another world, and Carew was raised by them, although she's human. And then we have Akiva. Akiva is an angel who is from the other world. And the two races are at war, and the angels are winning. And Carew and Akiva, over the course of this series, struggle to find a peace between the two races. They really believe that this is possible. But it's a lot more complicated than that. And the series takes place in Prague, in Rome, in Morocco, and in the other world, which is another dimension. This was fabulous. It concluded the series so beautifully. And while at the end it wrapped up all the important things, it also left some things open so that things were not completely finalized. And yet you didn't feel like there were a lot of loose ends, which was brilliant on the part of Laini Taylor, because she could conceivably do a whole companion series to this one, exploring what happens later. If you like YA fantasy, do yourself a favor and read this, because it is just epic. I have no words. It's that good. So that was my week. Pretty epic, huh? This week I'm not going to pull anything out of my TBR jar. I did that last week and wasn't able to finish the book, and so I put it back in the TBR jar and left it for another time. But I'm not doing that because I'm reading Harry Potter. I really am. I'm finally doing it. This is book 2, The Chamber of Secrets, and I'm about to chapter 3. I am alternately listening to it and picking it up in print as I, feel like I can. At night I listen to it as I fall asleep, and I have to say the narrator is fabulous. It's Jim Fry, and he's really good. So yeah, I'm committed. I'm going to get through this, and I'm probably going to get grabbed by this so much that I want the rest of the series, which is a good thing because I have it all. And the other thing I'm doing is a buddy read with my friend Giselle. It's a buddy listen. We are listening to the Enchanted Forest Chronicles by Patricia C. Reedy. And they are dealing with dragons, searching for dragons, calling on dragons, and talking to dragons. It's 4 pretty quick books. This is my daughter Emma's set, so if I want to switch between the audio and the print, I can do that. I will see you on Friday with Friday Reads. If you've read any of these books, let me know what you thought of them. I'm always interested to hear that. And I will see you then. So thanks for watching.
When I'm gone, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me by my walk. You're gonna miss me by my talk. Oh, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone.